Hey guys,
Afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Give it a couple.
Afternoon.
I think we might be without Steve Zaretti today. I think he had mentioned he wasn't going to be able to make it.
Okay. I haven't heard from John. I don't know what he's up to lately.
He's on the call.
Oh, there you go.
You can ask him.
Just need to open my eyes.
I'm gonna take the fifth on what I've been doing. Lane, did you send out an agenda?
It was essentially the same agenda as last Friday, but it did go up on the website, I believe, earlier today.
Okay.
Primarily because, John, I know you didn't make it to the last call, but we were missing Laura, so we basically have to go through pieces of the documents that we were going to do anyway. So I just kept it the same. I guess Steve's already is here. Okay. I think the only person we're waiting for still that I know of is Laura. Alicia, did Laura mention that she was going to be able to make it?
Yeah, I talked to her earlier today.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I'll give her another minute or two.
She doesn't show up soon, I'll panic text her.
Okay, sounds great.
And I apologize. I'm probably going to have to log off around 4:30
Mm-hmm.
for another meeting.
Understood. Understood. Mondays are usually bad for everybody, so I'm surprised we're able to pull this together.
Same.
One thing I might ask if somebody doesn't mind, as you can see, I'm not at my house. I'm kind of I'm in a hotel room, so I'm rather limited in terms of my screens and stuff. Would somebody mind sharing when we're going through the documents? Mind sharing their screen?
I'm glad to do that.
Thank you, Eric.
I could share the agenda right now.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to get started. I'm assuming Laura will probably join very shortly, but I might just, here she is right here. Okay. Speak of the devil. All right. Well, I'm going to get started here. Just wanted to thank everyone for taking time out on a Monday. I know we have a bunch of stuff to get through, so I won't say anything else other than jump right into public comment. I know we have several members of the public here, so if you would like to speak, just try to click on the hand raising function and we'll go from there. Going once, going to, oh, here we go. Charles.
Yes, hi, I'm Charlie Rosenfield. I run Putnam Hydropower in Putnam. I spoke briefly at your meeting last Friday. I've listened to the recordings of your previous meetings and just wanted to comment that, we are currently running at 2 to 3 cents for energy at our Putnam, Connecticut site. And of the considerations that you're considering, I think a last resort type tariff is far more workable and equitable across various industries and issues than the idea of a DEP solicitation, which I see a number of pitfalls with. And I just wanted to make that comment that I think the last resort type tariff would be a easier to implement and probably ultimately better for policy solution.
Thank you, Charles. Okay.
Charlie, can you just talk about what you see as the pitfalls of the solicitation?
A couple of things that jumped out. Well, from what I listened to the previous meetings, people were talking about it coming out at a fixed rate for fairly long periods of time. And in the really uncertain inflation environment we have now, beyond, I don't know, in my case, maybe 5 years at a fixed rate, it's impossible to forecast. No one knows what inflation will do. No one knows what interest rates will be. No one knows anything that far out. So it's very hard to commit to that. And it also sounded like it was not going to be just based on price, but the idea was that there would be various, environmental benefits or other economic benefits, which are unquantified and unspecified. So you're going to be awarding contracts, if this went through, on unquantified and unspecified criteria, which is a recipe for who has the best lobbyist and patronage, and it's just difficult to implement. It seems to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw, Alicia, I saw you had your hand up and I think you took it down. I don't know if you want to jump in.
That's because John was reading my mind.
Oh, okay. That works then. Any additional public comment? Okay.
One other thing I'll just point out, and I think this is a little bit of the story that Charlie's not telling, and it goes to the unquantifiable kind of aspect of hydro, particularly small hydro in the state of Connecticut. Charlie, as he said, has been running a plant in Putnam for decades that he took over from his father. So this is a family business. It's kind of supported, a couple generations in that corner of the state. And I know Charlie has several folks that work for him. So there's real people behind these projects as well. And I just wanted to point that out.
Thanks, John. Anybody else? Okay. With that, I'm just going to move right into the agenda. And I don't know, Eric, I forget which one was first on the agenda. If it was the Environment Subcommittee report, I think that was number one there.
I think industry subcommittee report was up first, and then intro, executive summary, and conclusion. So I could open up the industry.
I might recommend we go with the Environment Subcommittee. I know it's a little backwards here, if that's okay, because I know one of the big sticking points that we found is actually is part of that report, unless there are objections from the group. Hearing none, let's jump to the Environment Subcommittee report first. I think then maybe we can get right into the meat of the conversation. Sorry to throw a curveball at you, Eric.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, just right as you said that, the SharePoint kind of blipped out on me. I needed to go back to it. But yeah, I should be able to share my screen right now.
And just so Eric and Laura aren't shocked, I did a significant amount of reworking of this afternoon, and you have not seen it yet. So I can explain my actions if necessary. But what I tried to do was make it flow better. And I hope I did accomplish that, as well as changing things so I think it addressed some of the questions that a lot of folks have, or at least I hope I accomplished that.
Well, in that case, I would propose we just go right to your changes. I think that might. It looks like it's starting off right here in the section that wasn't the big question that we had going on. So
those first two comments, I thought we had resolved those the last time we looked this over in conversation, but someone else, John and Laura, please refresh my memory.
I think I still have a little bit of a question on the percentage of projects that are run-of-river versus some sort of store and release. And I know we talked a little bit about the difficulty in finding reliable information on that. But I guess in that context, I'd be hesitant to provide data that can't be referenced.
So that data came directly from the Oak Ridge laboratories. So it can be fact checked and referenced.
Oh,
And
okay.
then there is a footnote there.
I'm sorry.
Are you able to see the footnote when I hover over it there?
Kind of. It just strikes me as odd. So I'm just gonna take a note.
I mean, if someone else, if you find something else that says something different, I mean, feel free. And I understand that, you know, some of this information is in the 401 water quality certs, but I mean, I'm going to a source that's already done all of that digging, and I just don't have time to do it myself. And if anybody else does, but I do have my source cited, so.
I understand. I understand that. Yeah, I'm just curious, so I'll check it out.
And actually, I can send you the spreadsheet I reworked when I did all my sorting, if that's helpful, John.
Sure.
But it was right from that full list from Oak Ridge Labs.
Okay.
And I know there was a question about whether it was capacity or project. This was per project.
Per
That
project.
it was listed that way in the Oak Ridge Labs report.
That would make more sense because capacity wise, it's definitely not even close, but.
No, but I mean, but what we're looking at is, well, okay, I know what we're looking at, I think, is project feasibility, right?
Yeah.
In addition to, you know, capacity feasibility, but at a different in these terms. So.
Okay. Maybe this second section here down, just below subsection B here. I see there's some changes. I'm assuming this,
Yes.
the green language here, the green lettering are your changes, Alicia?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm confused because on my computer they were red.
Oh.
So I changed this around a little bit. And I know we've been going back and forth on whether we're talking about unpowered dams or not. So I qualified this part by, and remember this we wanted to include just to sort of remind folks of what we're looking at as far as dams in general in the state and the condition they're in. So that if someone is, or a legislator is thinking about unpowered dams, I included, you're moving around now, I can't see, hold on. Okay, I'm looking at my own document, so don't worry. So if recently commissioned projects or unpowered dams are to be considered in any procurement, it is very important to take feasibility and potential removal into consideration. And just, you know, just stating that decisions have to be based on realistic potential. And I moved some things around and just simplified some of these paragraphs. Again, just kind of emphasizing the cost of rehabilitation as a part of the cost benefit calculation that needs to happen when we're considering what sort of projects we want to procure for hydropower. So I simplified that and I kept the data from the dam safety officials reports. I removed, and this is where I just want to bring this to Eric and Laura's attention. I removed the paragraph that got into generating potential. Let's see, where was that? Go, yeah, scroll down. So where it starts with, yeah, those two paragraphs, I did remove that because I felt it was a little bit confusing and didn't flow. But then again, just emphasizing the cost and impacts, that we have to weigh the costs and benefits. And so the sentence at the end of, nope, go up one, that last sentence. I deleted that last sentence and I reworked it to say, with all the costs and benefits taken into consideration, projects that are not economically feasible without incentives that go beyond equitable rates should not be considered for tariffs or incentives. This would be bad for both ratepayers, taxpayers. Well, it's both not a bad word. I didn't catch that. And the environment. And I think that might get at what we were trying to say and alleviate any issues with the last sentence in the last paragraph there that I deleted. But
when you write with all the cost benefits taken into consideration, does that include? I know I had put a comment in a while back about, some of the difficult to quantify contributions that projects do have on communities, such as like recreation and that sort of thing. Does that take that into account as well in your mind, or is that something that's separate?
Well, I did see all of that information in the industry assessment. And I think, you know what, honestly, it depends on who's doing the quantifying, Lynn, right?
Yeah,
and which way
it
you're
is kind of
looking at it.
open. It does seem kind of open.
But I think the hard costs, such as it's going to cost a bit to rehabilitate the dam. It's going to have continuing costs on maintenance. Making sure it is environmentally sound as far as river health goes has a cost, and that is quantifiable.
Yeah.
And I think that, and what we're trying to get at here is we don't want to prop up dams that just projects that are not feasible, without equitable rates. I understand that you're looking for an equitable rate structure. But we shouldn't be, I think we have all agreed that there are some projects that just shouldn't be incentivized. And that's what I'm trying to get at here, especially when it comes to smaller dams that are in poor condition or will be in poor condition soon that just need to be removed.
You're trying to thread that needle, which I do. I do see that. I appreciate the changes. I just want to make sure that we thread it in such a way that it actually does provide the opportunity for support to, projects that should be retained for, not just the energy contribution, but also the other contributions as well. And that's, I guess, the way it's written here. It's to your point, it depends on who's reading it, I suppose.
Right.
Which is
because I also didn't want to look, Colebrook right now is an unpowered dam. I don't want to exclude projects like that.
Yep. I know Duncan and then Eric both have their hands. Go ahead, Duncan.
Very good. Well, Alicia, very good. I like, and generally these changes you made, in particular, taking out the last sentence of section B. And, I really don't have any problem with anything here that I can see. It all depends on your definition of equitable rates, but I think we know what equitable rates are. It's similar to what other renewables get and not getting ridiculous with incentives, I guess, is what we're talking about. The last sentence, now you have a dam should be screened for removal. I just hope that screening process doesn't involve a big, long procedure. You do, I think, I can't see it, but I think up above you say basically the same thing, that dams should be screened for removal. So maybe you're mentioning it again here, that's okay, but maybe we don't need to. So that's in the interest of moving along here, because we have a lot to do today. I'm okay with this. And thanks for adjusting it, Alicia.
And note that I did I did put unpowered dams. I specified in that
Correct,
sentence.
right. Yeah, because we have some out there, Andy, who spoke yesterday with his unpowered dam. That's a prime example. He's got a FERC license and he's just trying to make it happen. So that is an unpowered dam there, like Colebrook. Very good.
Thanks, Duncan.
Well, and I'll yield to Laura in a minute, but yeah, this is my first time seeing the language. I'm a little not wild about it, only because I feel like that what could potentially get missed here is that I think we were saying, somewhat collectively that we wanted to keep open the opportunity to be able to give a preferential rate to someone who is willing to make those investments to improve. And I feel like I just hope that this doesn't it kind of suggests that if they aren't yet there right now, then there isn't any hope to get some assistance to be able to get to that level where we'd be comfortable with fish passage and flow and other environmental amenities that we'd like to see as a part of a project. So that was the only thing that I was just kind of tripping over a little bit with the language here. But I do appreciate the greater focus on unpowered dams here, if that's helpful. But anyway, I'll yield to Laura. I don't know if Laura has other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate Alicia's effort here to try to thread the needle, but I'm not sure I agree with the outcome on this one. The main point is dinky little dams that are currently serving no purpose and no one's maintaining them and no one's doing anything. I don't want all of a sudden those to be feasible for hydro because we've decided to pay them higher rates. Well, they're not even making money right now. They're not even hydro dams, but we've decided. So now all of a sudden the equation changes and someone thinks, oh, I should put hydro on this dam when it has literally been sitting there rotting in place for the last 10 years. And now because we've decided to give incentives for what we feel are some kind of environmental benefits of turning that little dam into hydro as opposed to removing it, I'm just not pro that. I'm just not pro that at all. That's exactly what I've been talking about, was spreading out the impacts of hydro. I would rather see funding go into dams that are existing hydro dams that have good, responsible owners behind them that are doing everything to make these facilities clean energy. And I would rather see us increasing the efficiency of these sites than spreading out the impacts into a bunch of small dams that have been littering our landscape for decades, and all of a sudden offering them a rate where now someone thinks it makes sense to put hydro on those. That's what I'm not pro. That's exactly what I'm not pro. And we talked about taking a lot of the language out of this section when we said, oh, well, let's just talk about existing dams. That's what we're tasked with, right? We're tasked with talking about existing dams right now. And let's take out potential. But then I see potential sprinkled everywhere else except for here. So that's my concern.
Yeah, I still am not clear, Laura. If we're talking about potential unpowered, I don't think we've actually come, and that's why I wanted to keep some language there that address some of that so people understand what the condition of our dams are. And I don't, and as far as screening for removal, we wouldn't be screening a powered dam for removal, would we?
Well, we do screen powered dams for removal when those owners are not following any of the rules and regulations that keep them suitable sites. We most definitely do. We don't prefer to look at active hydro dams because most active hydro dams are being kept up and have responsible owners with them. But yes, we don't take screening of for dam removal away from looking at hydropower sites. They just aren't a very feasible site to look at when they've been maintained well and are doing a lot of the things they're supposed to be doing to try to balance things. So I don't know. I just saw this. I mean, I've just seen the wording 5 seconds
Yeah,
ago.
I apologize, but
Yeah. So I've just seen
only
the
had
wording
time to work
changes
on it
5
today,
seconds.
and I didn't see anyone else's suggestions.
It's
so.
all right, and I really appreciate that, Alicia. You've been doing so much, and I thank you so much for that. But I'm just worried that we might be watering things down here at a level that doesn't get to what I was hoping this would get to. And what I was hoping this would get to is there's, like, again, like I said, a small dam that's been abandoned for a decade or more, and it doesn't make any financial sense to put hydro on it. But now that we've decided to give it incentives and pay a higher rate, now someone wants to turn it into hydro. That's my concern.
Thank you for the clarification, Laura. Duncan, go ahead.
Hey, Laura, I understand your desires, okay? CSPPA, we have desires too, but we become flexible to make things work. To say that if there's an existing dam there that doesn't have a hydro on it, there should be, and you're saying that there should be no situation in which we should give them anything more than the wholesale rate to get it running, then you're against that, right?
No, that's not what I'm saying, because I think dams like Colebrook and other dams like that could be very good win-win situations where the dams are going to stay in because they provide significant other benefits. But I am talking about a little dinky dam that provides basically no benefit unless all of a sudden you give an incentive to put hydro on it, and it puts hydro on it. But it's not adding to recreational value. It's not providing flood control. It's not any of the above. It hasn't had fish passage on it in years, but now we'll consider it if they can put hydro on it. How about the responsibility of the fact that who's ever owned it for all this time hasn't done anything with it? And it's been an impact to this public trust resource that entire time. So no, I am interested in balanced solutions, Duncan, and I am trying to give or take. I'm just saying that the re-editing of this happened about 5 seconds ago, and I need to absorb things. And that my quick read of this is that it's watering down what I thought we were trying to say here.
Is it possible?
Okay. I'm sorry. How do we differentiate between Colebrook that you say should go and others that are out there that maybe you're saying they should or should not go?
Because that's a dam that serves multiple other existing purposes, multiple other economic purposes and existing purposes.
So,
right, and there's others out there that might be similar to Colebrook. They just have to be looked at specifically one case at a time. What about Andy that spoke the other day? I know you weren't here. He's got one that he owns, and he's got a FERC license, and he's ready to roll, but he just doesn't have rates to make it feasible. What about Hockanum River, Burnside Dam?
And does that have the one that you're talking about, which I'm not familiar with because you didn't even give me a name of a dam just then, but is that one a hydro dam right now? It's an existing hydro dam, you're saying?
It's an unpowered, it used to generate decades ago, like many of these others, but it went off service, and now he wants to put it back online.
Okay,
right.
And it's got all the hydro stuff there, and what other purpose does it serve?
Well, it's a beautiful impoundment. It's going to provide renewable energy. I don't know. I mean, maybe some recreation, maybe there's a boat launch. I don't know, but there's other positive aspects.
Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't looked at each one of these examples. I don't know.
Is it possible?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is it
so
possible?
How about, Laura, if we this particular part where we'll look at offline, because I don't feel like I really removed a whole lot that got to where we were going, and just tried to make that last sentence a little bit more direct, that beyond any equitable rates, we should not be incentivizing projects, which I thought is what you were saying as well just now.
Maybe,
Um,
I guess I worry about all of a sudden giving new rates to some of these, giving higher rates to some of these facilities. But yeah,
I was going to propose, does it make sense for us to try to define more fully what you're talking about, Laura? I think I get the gist, a Colebrook, for example, has a real purpose beyond hydro.
yeah,
Uh, and if there's a way for us to further define this, again, keep in mind, this is a task force report. This isn't the legislation. So they're going to have to define this themselves as well. But if there is a way for us to kind of put those barriers on it and say, the only unpowered facilities that we would consider assisting are unpowered facilities that also provide other benefits beyond simply the potential clean energy, if you will. That it has to do something like flood control or provide recreation. Essentially, put those barriers in place that defines a facility, or I should say, a dam that's probably not going to get taken down because it has other purposes.
yeah. I'm requesting that I have more time to look at something that I've just seen a few seconds ago. That's what I'm
No,
requesting.
I understand. I understand.
Okay.
I'm just trying to throw that out there because we obviously want to get through this week. But that's just something I'll just throw out there as a potential.
But yeah, I think that's closer, Len,
Okay.
to what I was thinking, what you just said.
Okay. In terms of the rest of the document, some of the other changes and whatnot, there have been a few here and there. I think I had a note in here to rework language. That was from, I think, a meeting from not last week, but the week before. I think that has been done, but I don't know if anybody has any other comments over in these sections here.
Anything else that you want to emphasize, Alicia?
just that I kind of reworked this just as a balance to the existing environment and challenges portion that states that, FERC regulation protects the environment and there's a laundry list. And I just wanted to emphasize that while that is supposed to be the case in regulation, in practice, this is not what we see from our perspective. The amount of resources that have to go into ensuring that there is that balance and that equitable consideration, and the report from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, pretty much states that some of those entities, including federal and state, don't always have the resources to engage in the process to make sure that those mitigation measures are in place as they should be.
I didn't see any issues from my perspective. Oh, looks like somebody got. Here we go. I'm just gonna mute somebody. Sorry about that. There was a little feedback. I didn't see anything in this section here that was problematic from our perspective. I don't know if anybody else did, but I thought the rest of this looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're good with it.
So I think the only outstanding issue on this document, which is obviously a very big one, is how we address the language that we just discussed. So I would recommend that we take a day or two, whatever it's you need, Laura, to kind of go through this, try to hammer out the finality of it, and ideally we can potentially offline we can essentially sign off on it during the course of the week. I know we do have a meeting planned for Friday. I think that was our planned deadline for the final report, which I do think is still possible for us. depending on how this goes. So
We say we have a meeting on Friday, but I don't see anything on the schedule that has been sent around.
I think we had planned to do a meeting every Friday up until the Friday before April 1st, which is not this Friday, but the following Friday. However, that one may not be needed because if we finalize what we need to do this week, that was essentially just kind of a fallback date.
Okay, well, we don't have a calendar invite, so if someone could send a calendar invite, that'd be great. And that's going to be a 1 to 3.
Yeah, the typical time frame. This was the only time frame outside of it, simply because we felt we needed an extra meeting.
I will say, just not that it matters moving forward because we're not going to have so many of them, but when we don't put holds on there like that, I'm not the only one who fills up my calendar. So even if I mentally know that you say we're going to have a meeting every Friday, if it's not there, people put, like, for example, someone already put an interview with a position we're trying to fill. They put that during that time period because it wasn't shown as a hold on my calendar.
Understood.
So.
Duncan, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Right. You know, we've all been working very well for a long time on this study. We've had our assignments according to the table of our various subcommittees. You know, we've gone beyond some of those deadlines. I just think that it's important that we get this to, you know, we're late on getting this thing done. We pushed it back from February the 1st. Now we're talking about maybe a little bit more waiting. You know, I was hoping to get all these documents done today. You know, JF is on the 26th, and then I was told that ET does have a meeting on the 21st. It's just Wednesday. I mean, ideally, I would like to have this report done and give it to them on Wednesday for their meeting. Wouldn't that be great? But no, now we're talking about, you know, going and doing some more wording and talking about having another meeting on Friday. So, I mean, I'd say if we can, let's get it in gear and get this thing done and crunch time, you know, like then this is like a midterm exam. How about if we have a meeting before Friday? How about if we have a meeting tomorrow? I'm ready to do this. I want to get this done, and we're late, and we need to kick it in gear, is what I say.
I appreciate the urgency, Duncan, and I would like to have this done. You know, would have loved to have had this done weeks ago, but we do have to follow the process for everybody, and I want to be respectful of that. You know, the legislature gave us till April 1st. You know, Representative Steinberg was well aware that the JF was before that. And I think that, you know, the plan is, from their perspective, is to see what we come out with and then leverage it in whatever they're going to move forward with in the final bills. You know, obviously we don't have control over whatever happens to this after the fact, but while we get it finalized, obviously we want to make sure everybody's on board. Otherwise, as I think I might have mentioned this before, if one person's not on board, then nobody's on board. We basically don't have a report. So, you know, I think we all are trying to get this over the finish line. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say something along similar lines, Lynn, and just if this puts your mind at ease a little bit, Duncan, it's pretty, you know, all too ordinary of a process that there are bills that get passed out of committee while there's still works in progress. So it's very possible that the committee can take action without having to have finalized language in front of them. And that's kind of what I would anticipate. Even if we got it to them by Wednesday, there wouldn't be enough time for them to turn it into bill language. They're going to have to go with what they have. So maybe pass 382 out of committee, just JF it and come back after it's come out of committee and keep working on it and amend it later in the process. So I think we all are feeling the urgency to get it done, but if it's not done by, Wednesday, I think we'll be fine, but as long as we keep making progress.
Is JF a real date? Is that a hard date that if they don't get something out by JF, then forget it for this year?
I'll speak to that. Just having served in the legislature, I can tell you the JF deadline is absolutely a hard date. That said, it is very, very common for bills to be works in progress. In fact, it's very rare, in my experience, to have a bill pass out of a committee at or before the JF deadline that actually remains with the same language that came out of committee. It almost always changes beforehand when it comes to the floor of the Senate or the House. So the bills that I think they're often called placeholder bills, whatever you want to call them. Those are almost never unexpected, so to speak, especially in the Energy Committee in particular. Just at least in my experience, I have rarely ever seen the Energy Committee pass a bill that remained the same language. It doesn't happen because it's a very complicated and complex system, as everybody here knows. So, and the legislature sometimes has a tough time wrapping their arms around what everything means. So for our purposes, I think the best thing we can do is put out as quality a product as we can that actually makes sense to those of us who are appointed, and obviously the members of the public who have joined us too. So at least that's my goal, and I think we can get it done this week. It's just, if we need a few more days, then we need a few more days.
Is there any way that we could consider a meeting before Friday? Like, how about, doing the, what do you call the thing you send out and ask everybody if they have times available? Maybe we can do a meeting Wednesday, and that might
We
even
can try. I can say for myself that as you can see, I'm in Pittsburgh right now. I'm out on the road at our plants in Pennsylvania tomorrow all day, and then I'm on an airplane on Wednesday. So that kind of makes things difficult for me. But I certainly don't want to speak for everybody else. But I'm sure that people's schedules are jammed. We could try, but I think maybe from my perspective, it may make sense for us to discuss this more towards the end of the meeting and see how people feel about it then. Let's try to get through these documents as much as we can, which we did make a lot of progress, I think, on Friday. So I'm going to propose that we put up the industry subcommittee report now, if that's okay, Eric.
Is this the correct one?
Yes, I believe it is. Sorry, it's very small on my screen. Okay. Duncan, you have your head up?
right. So this one here, Lynn, you wanted to get rid of these 3 initial paragraphs. The first paragraph, I think it's kind of harmless. It's a good little intro for this section. The second one, I like it because it's clean cut and straightforward about the fact that projects are out there getting 3 cents a kilowatt hour, and a lot of them can't get class 1. Yeah, we kind of talk about that down below, but it doesn't come out nice black and white and clear like we have it in paragraph number 2. Paragraph number 3, I agree we can get rid of that. So what do you think about keep paragraph 1, keep paragraph 2, throw away paragraph 3, and then keep the next section, existing environment, down there?
Go ahead, John.
I guess I'll just say I'm not a fan of these 3 paragraphs, Duncan. I think this section's about the existing environment. We should just kind of frame it as that. There is a section on challenges that kind of is exactly what you're talking about here. We're getting low rates and some of the reasons for that. So I think there's a place for that message, but I don't think it's in just framing the environment. And I think it kind of detracts from the facts, right? Because it's not that these aren't facts, but we just want to talk about, here's what we have in the state. The challenges section is where we can bring some of these items to light. It's my opinion.
I'd agree with that. I mean, that's kind of where I was coming from as well.
Okay, then so be it. That's fine.
Thankfully, we did go through quite a bit of this report the other day, so hopefully there's not too much more that we need to tune up.
Right, but there was good discussion about this list, and Alicia pointed out, and I totally agree, that it really should be split into a few lists, not just all into this one list. So I did that. I emailed that to everybody just 3 minutes before this meeting. So if you look at your email now, you'll see I have 3 proposed lists instead of the one list. Let's see what we got here.
Sorry, I didn't hear the conversation around splitting this up, but can you?
Yeah, but it's 3, it's basically 3 different types of projects here. We have operating, we have decommission, and we have unpowered, right? So it's really just making those 3 lists instead of putting them into one list.
Yeah, I think the big gist of the conversation from Friday was, and correct, keep me honest, Alicia, because I think you were talking about this, but essentially, why are we keeping some of the projects that are in the process of being decommissioned now, in a list that could be used as potential opportunities? Kinneytown is obviously the one that sticks out there.
Well, I think that it was more confusing having them all in one list. It was my point of, right? So I just looked at Duncan's list, and it makes more sense to me to have the 3 separated out, the ones that are operating. So
Sure.
then there's an understanding of what is currently out there. And then having the recently decommissioned dams separate. And then I see he changed that to unpowered licensed hydropower projects, which definitely differentiates between unpowered but I'll leave it to Laura and Eric to see if they find this acceptable.
The only rub I have, and I'll just pull out our 2 facilities that are on this list here. Bantam is kind of in no man's land. Robertsville is not decommissioned. It just isn't operating right now. It needs to be fixed. So I wouldn't call those 2 facilities decommissioned, but I mean that's getting nitpicky with very specific resources. I mean, honestly, I think the gist is there are these different types of projects out there, and we want to highlight them. So
I think that's kind of where I was going with the initial single table, is that there are different categories for projects, and there's the easy ones are the ones to say, yeah, they're authorized and they're operating, and then there's things like Len saying they're authorized, but for some reason they're not operating.
yeah.
Right? And those are projects that could benefit potentially from some of the considerations we're talking about.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have to go through a FERC process again, right? Then there's obviously ones that are decommissioned or are in the process of being decommissioned, which, there are various reasons for it. And I think I really like the, where there's a need for a footnote or asterisk, like Kinneytown, it's decommissioned and it's slated for removal. So it's not really a potential asset. Right? Yeah. So I think that was the point, is just because it's a little bit of a mixed bag, and maybe maybe that's the thing that is confusing, is some of these projects, even though they're not operating right now, doesn't mean they couldn't be.
Yeah. Go ahead, Laura.
Is Colebrook actually being decommissioned currently?
The license has been surrendered. It's fully decommissioned.
It's fully decommissioned at this point. Yeah, I don't support Kinneytown being on this list.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, something like a Robertsville and a Bantam, it's almost like a different category. I see licensed not operating. Maybe they should go in there, but that's, as I said, those are, I only know those 2 because those are ours. So.
Good. Thanks for catching me up.
Yep.
Well, I'll redo them. I'll take out Kinneytown, and then for ones like Robertsville that just needs to be repaired, it's not so-called decommission. I mean, I don't know what the correct definition of decommission is anyway, but maybe let's come up with other wordage. Maybe we can put in offline or decommissioned or needs in repair. Anybody have any ideas there?
I think simply putting it as, just not operating
Not
or
operating, yeah.
not
operating,
operating
okay.
would be a good,
Not, or not currently operating. Maybe
Not
that
current,
makes
yeah.
it made currently operating. That implies that.
yeah.
All right, not currently operating for Robertsville. Any other ones there need that designation? What's the story with the Willimantics?
Willimantics are not decommissioned, so they would just be the same, not currently operating. You know, they have an owner who's not using it, but I hear some people are sniffing around, looking into them.
Okay.
Yeah, Bantam, Robertsville, and the 2 Willimantics, I think, do apply there.
Okay, and Bantam. Okay, I got it. Very good. So I'll redo these 3 lists.
Yeah, decommissioned is a very specific thing. So if Colbert has been decommissioned, I would leave that one decommissioned. But if the others haven't, I would not use the word decommissioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would change the title as, instead of recently decommissioned, I would simply write not operating.
Well,
No.
where's the title? I thought this was all thrown into one. Am I looking at a different list than he's got here?
This is what I think is being shared right now. Eric brought it up. This is a list that was shared earlier today to address what Alicia had talked about on Friday, which is separating out the different classifications of these types of hydros. So that's
okay. So our chart right now has all of them, but you want to pull these. Okay. So what are you going to change the title of this to?
I would recommend recently decommissioned or not operating.
Or not currently operating. Okay. Yeah. And then take Kinneytown off. Yeah, I just don't think Kinneytown should be on any of these.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I don't know about anybody else, but
I'm okay with that. All right, so Pomprog sits there as the only unpowered one that we're really talking about, and we're talking about it because he's advanced, he's got a FERC license, and he just needs to get his rates better so he can afford to build it.
Why don't we just call it not currently operating, Duncan?
Because it's different.
there's no facility there.
These other ones are kind of have been running recently, whereas this one has not been running. Poprod's not been running recently. It's somebody taking an unpowered dam and saying, I want to put hydro there. That's what Pomprog is.
Is Pomprog the one that's in like that kind of gorge right next to the bridge?
I don't think so. I've been there, but that was a long time ago.
I thought there was a bridge right next to it. It's in kind of like a bedrock gorge. His building is like where he lives is right connected to the dam.
Yeah, it is kind of like a mill thing. Andy, are you with us? I saw you on earlier today. Are you there, Andy? Maybe not.
Pretty
But
familiar
anyway.
with that area because that's my hometown area, but I think that's the one you're talking about. You're not talking about the one in South Britain or whatever. You're talking about the one, like, I think it's in Woodbury. It's in like a bedrock gorge with the bridge right there, right next to the.
Right, you can see it from the road. I think it is in Woodbury.
Yeah, I know which one this is. Okay, yeah. He's been looking to put hydro on that for a long time. Yeah, exactly.
Were there additional outstanding issues on this document that we didn't address on Friday? I can't recall. I don't think there were, but I think there was more the big issue that we were talking about with the environmental subcommittee report. That was the big outstanding issue. But that said, I don't want to miss anything. I see virtual right here that Eric has highlighted.
Yeah, it had said just net metering, and I think we had the question: is it virtual net metering there? Would that be more appropriate? I think Mariana made that point.
That's correct.
Yeah, good point. I had asked there, John, if a virtual net metering was more appropriate to include there.
That's accurate. Whether it's virtual or remote, I mean, they all use slightly different.
Right, virtual or remote.
Means the same thing.
Okay.
Do we have a legend for that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
There is, yeah, that's like part of a spreadsheet that has a ton of footnotes.
Right, so typically the legend would like explain the colors where you wouldn't use colors. I mean, we have yes and no. So if the colors are just describing the yes and no, you wouldn't need the colors. And then the colors on the bottom as well. I guess I'm an engineer. Without color, with all these colors, I assume they have some kind of meaning, but I have no way of figuring out what the meaning is.
It does look pretty though.
It does. It looks very Eastery. And if that's the goal, if we just write a note at the end and said we have made an attempt to make this look very Eastery, that would be fine. But
I think I did that to illustrate the to make it pop so you can see who has programs and who doesn't by each state. And then the tally at the bottom is just to give you a sense for the number of the available programs per each state. So it's a kind of a red to dark green scale.
okay. Well, then that would be, I would either take out the colors on the red to dark green scale there, or because I like this chart a lot. This is really helpful, John. And I can understand that maybe people can figure out the yes and no's by red and green just by the fact that they all say yes or no on them as well. But the colors on the bottom for me indicated like I should be looking at a legend quick.
I'm not sure you even need the bottom, right? You can pretty easily tally how many programs are available in each state. And if that's confusing in some way, I say we just remove it.
Yeah, I don't mind the subtotal. I just would take out, yeah, for sure, the colors on the bottom and just leave the red and green. I think that is self-explanatory enough.
Excuse me, this is Andy Peclo. I was listening, but I wasn't on my computer. So I was hoping if you had any questions I could answer.
You're the one. You're the person who owns
Pomperog, yeah.
Pomperog, yeah. Okay.
I was just asking if your dam was the one on the Pomperog that's like in that narrow like gorge right next to the bridge.
Yes.
Yes. I've been to your site before. Okay, yep. Yeah, I was just, they weren't using, I wasn't just familiar with the words they were using, the name. They just said Pomperog, and there's of course multiple dams on the Pomperog. So I just wanted to make sure mentally I was thinking of the correct site.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. There is something here. I think that I had committed to checking with my people to see if we had any better information rather than information I think that was out of Wisconsin. I do have information on the Housatonic projects, just as an example. I have not input it yet, but I certainly can do that if we still want to make that change. I think I might be jumping a little bit ahead, but.
Yeah, well, I think that would be a great addition to make it more relevant to Connecticut, Len. So I appreciate your willingness to do that. I wanted to make sure that we just didn't miss. I know we had talked a little bit last time about some of the statements that were being made here, and either have a citation for it or tweak it somewhat. But Duncan, I know you were looking into those. But go ahead, Duncan.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Right. First of all, back to that chart. I really do like the colors. The colors show, just for the quick view, what states have been kind of delinquent and others that are advancing on or are more advanced on providing programs for hydro. So instead of just
then just put a legend in. Then if you really like the colors, I just put a legend in. It's just unclear without a legend what the colors are for.
Sure. Okay. Will do. And next, I was asked to find a reference for my little statement. Hydropower is the second most heavily regulated industry in the U.S. next to nuclear. Well, that is from the National Hydropower Association website. I just went back there this morning to look for it again. I couldn't find it, so I don't have a good citing for that. If you want to take it out, be my guest. Take it out if you want to.
Maybe just rework it to say hydropower is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the United States. I think would
be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is I think it's subjective, but I think most people who are in the regulatory environment know that hydro is very regulated.
Right. And then a second ago, Eric, you said that I was looking into something else. What else was I looking into?
Yeah, there were a few statements here related to FERC that there was some discussion, and I think I lost the thread a little bit, but there was and yeah, maybe it was Steve who had pointed out that go ahead.
Specifically, there's a statement here that I'm just not familiar with it being the case. It says specifically that if you've been continuously operating a hydro since 1935, that you would be basically exempt from any FERC regulation. And we have a number of hydros that predate that have FERC licenses that we actively have to renew. So I don't know where that information is coming from, and maybe it's a subset of FERC regulation that doesn't apply to all hydros. I'm not sure. But
that is true. It's for real. Maybe I'm back in the 1980s when I was more active in hydro, but what happened also was FERC got on a position where they still wanted these hydros to get FERC licenses. So they said, listen, you're affecting interstate commerce. I don't care if you've been operating since 1935. We still are making you get a license. So that also happened. So
I guess the point that I'm raising, Duncan, is we have assets that date back to the early 1900s, right? 1910, where we have to get a license for it. So that statement seems like it implies something that isn't true across the board, and that's what I'm looking to clarify. Maybe Len or John have a different perspective or could confirm.
Yeah, you're right, Steve. Similar boat. We have projects that are over 100 years old, and we have to license them. And Duncan, that is a very nuanced provision within the Federal Power Act, and we're only catching part of it. So I think it's misleading the way it's written.
Can we
just get rid of those first words and then say all hydros in the U.S. are required to get a FERC license or exemption? Is that true?
No, that's not true either.
It's not true.
All right, then which one?
That's not true. Rainbow Dam. It's a hydro dam without a FERC license.
Is there a way for us to rework this wordage so that it is reflective of reality?
Yeah, take out the sentence. That sentence is just wrong.
All right. I'm okay with taking the sentence out. It doesn't.
Same here. Yep, I agree.
That's fine, but folks, I mean, I don't want to push this, but it looks to me like Rainbow has been operating since prior to 1935. That's why it doesn't have a license.
No, it doesn't have a license because at the time in the 1970s, where there was a court case that came to the conclusion that the Farmington River was non-navigable.
Right. There are three criteria, Duncan. It's on a non-navigable waterway, does not affect interstate commerce, and has been continuously operating since before the Federal Power Act, which is the 1935 date. So you're only catching part of it.
Right.
Yeah, it would either need to be cleaned up, or it may just make sense to just take this part out.
Yeah,
just take the sentence out.
It doesn't take away, Duncan, from the point that this section is making is relative to the regulatory obligations, right?
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind taking it out.
Yes.
Can I just say, John, thank you for explaining that three-part rule. I did not know that before.
Yeah, no problem. I have lots of useless information.
That's not useless.
Good to know. Keep that in mind.
Good on trivia night.
Wait, I don't think there's a FERC trivia night. I don't know. Even in the geekiest world, I don't think there's a FERC trivia night.
Thank God. Yes.
You're looking at everybody that could be interested participating right here.
Right. I think there's still some cleanup here that's needed because it's kind of now jumping from one thought to the next. So if someone would take some time to do that, that's going to help the overall document rather than trying to wordsmith it today. And I think now we're to the organizational question. Let me just say that I think this one was resolved, right?
Taken care of. Yeah, that's been taken care of.
All right. So there are a few questions here in this section on the benefits of hydropower that Laura had asked, and we went over this without going into each of these during the last meeting because we wanted to make sure you were here, Laura, for the discussion. But if there are things that we want to work out here, this would be the time to do it, I think.
Yeah, this first one right here, Laura, you had a question about how it's considered to be sustainable. Duncan did respond. I think I mean, I would argue that it's sustainable, but I think you may have a different perspective on that. So I'm curious if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, typically to me, something's sustainable if it doesn't need regular maintenance, and this does. All these things need regular maintenance, so I don't see how it's sustainable. Or maybe I'm thinking self-sustaining. I don't know how you guys are using the word sustainable there because what is sustainable about it?
I think, I mean, from my perspective, we're not burning fuels. We're not burning through a fuel. So it's obviously there are some changes to waterways and whatnot, but we're not burning through fuel, which makes it a sustainable energy source, as opposed to, which is a nomenclature that I think is generally accepted throughout the industry. But that's kind of my viewpoint on how it works that way. I think all green energy or all sources of energy, as Duncan I think has pointed out here, they all do take maintenance. I know we have a solar farm, for example, that seems to be down more than it's up. So it does happen quite often. But Duncan, it looks like you have your hand up.
Right. It is a perpetual sustainable fuel being water flow. How about, Laura, if we put in the word self-sustainable in that title there?
No, I think that's exactly what it's not, is self-sustaining, but I do understand the kind of sustaining you're talking about here. That it's got a sustained, source of water. Yeah, I'll retract this comment. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, that definition of sustained as meaning it's got sustained water. I was thinking more self-sustaining, and it's not a self-sustaining thing, but that's fine.
If we could figure that out, if a self-sustaining source of energy, I don't think we have to worry about anything anymore.
Yeah. I agree. It'd be kind of exciting.
This next one, I think the low greenhouse gas emissions. So I see, yeah, there's a portion of it. I think you're probably referencing the methane question, Laura, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am.
And then, so the methane question is something that we haven't gotten into in this. I know that is an issue that is a hot topic, I think, in various circles these days with regard to reservoirs. I think maybe we can change this to carbon dioxide rather than pulling out. The difficulty with trying to get into the methane question, which we may want to have that debate at some point down the road, but I think it would be overcomplicated for our purposes. So I would actually recommend or offer that we change this just specifically zero carbon emissions.
That's yeah.
Or
Well, at least carbon dioxide.
I don't know if anybody else has an objection to that, but that's a debate that's currently happening on a national level, international level, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've definitely read a few papers about greenhouse gas emissions from reservoirs.
I think that's again kind of a nuanced discussion. And for Connecticut's hydropower fleet, I think the characteristics are such that it doesn't really come into play. It's more for new reservoir development in certain regions where
the tropics is where it happens the most, I think.
Yeah, I read a paper recently. I thought they had 2 examples that came straight out of Connecticut as well. And as someone who's done sediment probes behind the Kinneytown Dam, it's like there's a constant methane gas release going on. So
Like I said,
I don't think
this is
I don't think lack of research data in our area is enough of the justification to say that. But if we're going to do this on number 3, we have to change the title to
What's the title?
I don't know, something about carbon emissions, low carbon emission.
Well, I mean, the other thing I would just point out here is that statement is about the generation of electricity, not the development of dams and reservoirs.
Yeah, but you're implying that there's no greenhouse gas emissions from this particular source of energy, which is inaccurate because methane gas is definitely released from impoundments, and we have multiple research papers to point to at this point to show that that's the case. So
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree, Laura.
that's okay. That's
I
okay.
think it's still like an evolving question. There's no doubt that there are reservoirs that are sources. There are others that are sinks.
So I think, like I said, I think this is one of those issues that maybe it's best if we just kind of make it as specific as possible, and move forward with it.
Yeah, that works.
You know, one thing I'm having a little bit of problems with is that this is kind of standalone from that other section that we were talking about, because this list here, benefits of hydropower, is kind of standalone from the other lists we were talking about. And it gets back to what I said at the very beginning of the balance of, yeah, there's pluses and minuses, but just letting you know, there's the fact that we've separated these two out in two different sections.
Laura, what is the other list? I'm missing that you're referring to besides.
Well, we were doing benefits and impacts, right? We were doing benefits and impacts of hydropower.
I think what we decided on the Friday call was to structure it like this, and so the impacts would be the next part of the report itself. But this does reflect Friday's discussion to my
right. I wasn't here Friday, so I'm adding comment now. Yeah, I wasn't here Friday. I've made every single one of these meetings, but I couldn't make Friday.
Yeah, I think our plan was to try to keep benefits and impacts together, I think is what the gist was.
Okay, so the idea is it's not going to read like it reads now. We have benefits here, and then we'll have impact section right after this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that would be the challenges and that kind of, and then the considerations. We rearranged it to try to read more. We just didn't physically do it yet.
Okay.
Great. It's in the email. The email I sent this morning to everybody shows the current order of all the subjects.
Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Looks like there's questions on longevity. I see there's comment next to it. Maybe I'm. Oh, in terms of solar and wind. I would actually, from my perspective, recommend taking the comparison out with solar and wind. I think different technologies have emerged, and there are different life cycles and whatnot. It would probably be a mistake for us to try to capture that accurately. And I don't think it necessarily would take away from the point.
Agreed.
Looks like Eric's doing edits in real time, so that works. Okay. And then there's a second comment here after it's reached its design life. Are you referring to do you want to add something to longevity, Laura, or is this?
Yeah, on longevity, what source are we using for that? 50 to 100 years?
I think that's probably somewhat anecdotal from those of us who work in the industry. I mean, we have dams, and Steve already mentioned it. We have dams that are hydro from 1905, and that's still running strong. So
we do too.
Yeah,
You can cite us.
Yeah.
It's just that I've seen citations of dam life, and it's not typically that, but I know that's primarily based on sediment load and infilling, and I've always questioned that citation anyway. But okay, if we're just basing it on, experience from this group.
I think the other thing too, it's the hydro itself. The dam obviously is part of that, but it also refers to the turbines and everything else is, they still, as long as you maintain them, they still go. Same with the dams, but yeah, I don't think there was any other citation there. Down below, looks like public safety here. There is a comment. Was this did this change address what you had commented on, Laura?
So sorry, I was still reading the comment on longevity there. So what I was commenting on was the full life cycle and the fact that we don't ever seem to consider the costs of inevitable removal. And it looks like Duncan has basically said it could go on forever with prudent maintenance. I would argue against that. The materials within a dam do have a life cycle themselves. At some point, a dam has to be completely rebuilt. And can't just be maintained as is, but would have to be completely rebuilt. But that's not really what we're talking about on longevity anyway. You're more talking the life cycle of the energy power source itself.
Yeah.
And so what other one were you asking about right now on the public safety one?
Public safety, yeah.
Federal energy regulatory safety one. First of all, again, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission does not oversee the safety of all hydropower dams, as we just discussed. There are certain dams that are not covered under FERC and are still hydro dams.
Yes.
So that is a concern. Also, interestingly enough, and I'm just finding this out now through Kinneytown, but since FERC does not handle emergency actions relating to dam safety on hydro dams, they are saying that the state has to handle that, not FERC, when there needs to be an emergency dam safety response to something. So I'm not quite sure how accurate this statement is here.
So I think this definitely does need to be reworked. I think it would probably read better if we said that, FERC oversees the safety of hydropower of FERC regulated hydropower dams, et cetera, and specify FERC regulated, because not all dams are FERC regulated. States are the other entity that regulates dam safety.
But again, this is implying that they do such a great job at this that all FERC dams are kept in safe condition, and when there is an issue, it will be immediately addressed. That is most definitely not the case, and we're seeing that at Kinneytown in a big way, in the sense that all of the FERC dam safety reports did not include about 3,000 linear feet of earthen dam on the Copon Dam for the Ansonia Power Unit 2. So that was never even included, nor was it ever maintained. And now that it's turning out to potentially be an emergency situation, FERC is saying that they don't handle the emergency situations, and in a sense is punting it down to Connecticut DEP dam safety, saying that dam safety would have to take the emergency action.
So I'm not disputing that. I think my point is, what I'm saying is most FERC regulated dams, this is how it works. This is actually something that is a benefit. It's not always the case. And what we can potentially put in there, and not just FERC, I should say state regulated dams as well. We should also make a note that, frankly, sometimes, if it does fall off, there is a problem and the state ends up absorbing it.
I just have a real hard time calling this a benefit. first of all, dams are inherently unsafe. They're inherently creating a risk for people who live downstream of them. And to act like public safety is some kind of benefit from it being a hydro dam, I think is a silly statement. It just seems like a ridiculous thing to put in the benefits category, and it implies, even by saying this, even if you put most, it implies that all FERC dams are being kept in safe condition, and that is just not the case. That's an inaccurate statement. I know we see good players like yourselves, and I'm sure you're keeping things in safe conditions, but I would not call that the benefit. That's also the benefit of our dam safety divisions. And sometimes they do a good job and sometimes they don't do a good job. FERC's the same. Sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they don't.
I would be open to removing public safety from the benefits. I don't think that would be the end of the world from my perspective, but I don't want to take up Mariana. She does have her hand up and I know she has to drop, I think, at some point.
Sorry, I don't know if you want to wrap up the discussion. I did want to interject at some point with a couple of things because I have to drop off in a few minutes. Do you guys want to finish or should I interrupt? As I already did.
Why don't you interrupt, then we can go back to this in a moment.
Okay, great. So I do have to drop off here. Wanted to just mention a couple of things in looking at the report that we have, which is super comprehensive. I think one of the things that we aren't mentioning anywhere are existing federal programs that support hydropower. Some of this are, like, for example, Section 242 from DOE. I can send sort of a brief email with what these are. And I think they are important to include, whether in an appendix or perhaps the best place to include them is within existing environment. Something could be included there about federal programs available for projects with maybe a quick 2-3 sentences of description along with links as to where those are outlined. So that's one comment. And then the other is just if folks, one of the things that I think is important to just finalize in addition to everything is putting all of this into one document. And I just wanted to volunteer to do that. I probably have about an hour tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So folks stop working on the documents around that time. I can volunteer to put that all together into one document then.
That would be really helpful. Thank you, Mariana. That is actually something logistically we haven't really discussed, but it obviously has to happen.
And then in terms of deadlines, I know I had offered this before. Green Bank can sort of try to put like a cover page together and put it in some sort of nicer formatting. They probably need about 5 days. So maybe that's something that we do even after we release it, because I know we're working on tight timelines, but just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, what we could do, I think that's a good idea. I think what we could do is we can give the text of the document to the chairs, so they have it. They could start working off of it, and then we can officially put it in a nicer package for posterity and for the public. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of an obvious statement here, but I'll say it anyway. When all the pieces come together, having page numbers would be really helpful so that we could refer to them as we go.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so I'll work on putting all of that in that one document again, probably between 9 and 10 a.m. tomorrow. So folks could refrain from looking at documents then, and then I'll try to move all these documents to some sort of place where it's not erased but archived, so folks don't go into them, and we just have one document we're working off of. Hopefully that'll make it easier.
That sounds great.
Very much for that, Mariana. That's great that you're taking that up. So I will send you the first part of the appendix. That's the list of we, the members. And then a fresh copy of my CSPPA paper, and then Laura, if you need to send in a fresh copy of your impact section, please do that. But that's again, thanks for doing that, Mary. I appreciate it.
Of course. And just one request actually is don't send me anything by email. Save it in the SharePoint so that I know that whatever's in the SharePoint is the latest.
Okay, will do. I'll figure that out.
Sounds good. Okay.
Okay. Just to jump back to this question here, as I mentioned right before, I would actually be fine with pulling public safety out. I understand what you're saying, Laura, and I think trying to capture that as a benefit, I can see your point on it. So I'm fine with that, but I certainly don't want to speak for everybody else.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that I understand Laura's point in that, none of these programs, dam safety programs, whether they're federal or state, are perfect. And dams do have, inherent risks associated with them that since we have them, they need to be managed, right? And I guess from that perspective, as an owner, knowing what the amount of time, effort, and capital we put into maintaining these facilities, and the benefit that it provides beyond the power production to public safety is something that I think is important. And I don't want it to be overlooked. I think caveats could be appropriate, but I do think it's a public benefit. If the dam is not going to be removed for whatever reason, right, which we've kind of talked about before, and it is not a hydropower project, then those obligations either fall on an owner, if you know who that is, and Laura, you know as well as anybody that sometimes people don't even know they own a dam, right? So having a responsible owner that has strict dam safety kind of guidelines that they're, adhering to, and is responsible for all those costs associated with maintaining a dam that don't fall on the public, to me, is a public benefit. That doesn't mean that everyone's a perfect actor, right? And get that.
No,
Which is why I think maybe some caveats make sense, right?
Yeah,
I think that
this,
I think Laura's going to say what I was going to say.
I mean, that's the case with all dams. But by making something hydro, you don't all of a sudden have a responsible owner. It depends on who the owner is. And if it's not a FERC licensed dam, it's a state licensed dam. State have dam safety programs. They have requirements as well. They can be ignored as well. They can be ignored by hydro owners to FERC. They can be ignored by regular dam owners to dam safety. So to act like having the dam is somehow a benefit to public safety, it's not. It's a requirement to keep these dams in safe condition because there is an inherent risk associated with them. So I just wouldn't agree with the statement, the net safety, and that's only if you have a responsible dam owner, whether it be hydro or not hydro. And I have found that the state dam safety inspections I find to be more comprehensive than the FERC dam safety inspections.
Well, I mean, there's several high hazard dams owned by the state that are in unsatisfactory condition. Right?
Oh, I know that.
And
Same with hydro. Right. Same with hydro. So again, to list this as one of the benefits, that public safety is somehow a benefit, and putting it as a hydro dam is not ensuring its safety.
Well, the distinction is like, look, I think we agree. Dams have management. There's risks. There's things that need to get done. These things cost money. Who's responsible? Whether if it's a state high hazard site that needs the investment, that the public pays for that, right? To get the benefit of the enhanced public safety. If it's a hydropower project that has the same issues, the private owner pays for that. The public gets the benefit.
And the The majority of non-hydropower dams in the state of Connecticut are privately owned, not publicly owned.
But are the majority of high hazard, non-powered dams public or private?
I don't know from a high hazard point of view, but when we talk about hazard classifications, hydro dams come in all shapes and colors that way too, as far as their hazard classification.
Right, I'm just trying to keep it in the public safety, context.
Right, but in the public safety context, it does not all of a sudden mean you have some kind of public safety benefit because you've made a high hazard dam a hydro dam. A high hazard dam, if it's privately owned and it's state regulated, is still required to be kept in good condition. There are bad players, and there are bad players in the hydro world too. So it's not an added benefit.
Maybe
That somehow you're adding to public safety. You're yes, keeping your dam safe to keep the public safe. That's a requirement. Of course, you should have to, just like a building owner should have to keep their building safe. But because they have to keep their building safe, does that mean they are a benefit to public safety? Having buildings is a benefit to public safety because we have to keep them safe.
If the building is providing other public benefits, yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're talking. This is
It's like a minimum requirement. You own a structure, of course you have to keep it safe. It doesn't make it a benefit of hydro. It doesn't become a plus for hydro, like it wasn't safe without the dam there. You've actually made it less safe by having a dam there. And whether it is FERC owned or state owned or publicly owned and not FERC, it's still an inherent safety risk that, yes, you need to keep safe as part of your responsibility of dam ownership.
Right. So we agree that there are obligations and requirements to maintain the safety standards at a dam. We can agree on that. We agree on all the other stuff. We're talking about how those get managed. We're not talking about building a new dam, changing the river or anything else. That's already done, right? So we could put that behind us. And now it's like, who's responsible for inspecting and maintaining and doing the improvements to that facility?
The dam owner.
Right.
Right. Always.
And in the case of a FERC regulated facility, for example, you've got a lot of oversight. Whether you agree, like if it's appropriate or not, I think that's kind of a different argument. And but at the end of the day, that benefit to the public of doing that maintenance, which provides a public safety benefit, is done at no cost to the public.
Right, but the same with a privately owned non-hydro dam must be maintained in a safe condition.
Okay.
So, but it doesn't mean that that's a benefit. That's not a benefit of it because you're maintaining it in a safe condition. You're just making sure it doesn't harm anyone.
So could we just unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
Let's say it is a non-powered dam and you have a responsible owner and they're providing the proper maintenance, maintaining a safe facility. Is there a public benefit there?
Is there public benefit? Sorry, repeat this statement.
If it's a non-powered dam and you have a responsible owner who's maintaining a safe facility, is there a public benefit?
No, the public benefit is not dam safety. The public benefit is whatever they have on the dam. Let's say they're operating it as a recreational dam, or they're operating it as a water supply dam, or a flood control dam. That's the benefit. The fact that you're required to keep your structure safe, does that not mean that that's one of the benefits you're providing? Because you're required to keep your structure safe. That's inherently unsafe, and you're required to keep it safe. That's a requirement of the dam owner. It's not a benefit you are providing.
So I don't want to shut you guys down, but I also
I know. We need to move on. We need to move on.
Yeah, we both feel pretty strongly about this one, I think.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, we can feel strongly about it, but I'm just saying that I'm not going to call. I could never call that that's one of your benefits of a hydro facility. And then I actually have a similar kind of comments on the job creation and economic development. Because while there is job creation and economic development issues associated with hydro, there are also job creation and economic development with free-flowing rivers and with rivers that have, you know, migratory fish runs in them, and have in towns that are next to rivers like that have all sorts of recreational benefits associated with a free-flowing river. So
I would actually I would push back more strongly on this than the public safety piece, which I kind of see your point on public safety, Laura, but I would, given the amount of jobs and projects that are done to maintain hydropower, you know, not comparing it to, you know, a river without hydro, but the fact that the hydro is there and it has to be maintained, I think really does provide a lot of opportunity for local businesses. I mean, that's something that.
But we have economic analysis and we have reports that show that a free-flowing system has a lot of economic I know. And that's why I think on the argument on this one, and recreational value too, you can have, let's say, bass fishing and warm water fishing behind an impoundment. You have cold water fishing if you have the impoundment out of there, you know? So it's like there's two sides to that coin.
Well,
so
I mean, rivers are economic engines, Laura, whether they're dammed or not, right? But we're not, like, this isn't about free-flowing rivers. We're talking about benefits of hydro, and this is, I think, hard to dispute a benefit of hydro.
I agree. I think this would be a harder one to dispute. I guess I'm just saying there's two sides of the coin on number 7.
Sure.
As opposed to, I don't see it on number 6, but on number 7, I see two sides of the coin, especially when we end with a statement like utilized for recreational activities. I agree, but there's recreational activities on not having an impoundment as well. They're different recreational activities. But
I want to recognize Alicia.
Just one quick thing. First of all, John, if everyone was as responsible as you, Laura and I wouldn't be here. Right. And second, the other issue I do have is just some of these statements make it sound as if you know, FERC is in charge of this, so therefore all of these things definitely happen. And I think it's that absolute statement that makes both Laura and I uncomfortable, because, you know, while FERC may have standards for dam safety, I know what Laura has seen in the past is that, you know, when that safety is not, those safety requirements are not met, FERC is very weak on enforcement. So, you know, folks like you, John, don't have to be like forced to do anything, and because you're doing the right thing and checking your boxes as you should. But the issue is those absolutes about if that it will absolutely be safe because FERC regulates it is an issue for both Laura and I, from what we've seen from our end.
Yeah, I think absolute statements are just dangerous no matter what we're talking about.
Go ahead, Duncan.
What about changing 6 instead of public safety, call it safety responsibility, and then just say that FERC hydro projects, the responsibility shifts from either a private owner or the state to the hydro owner. And now the hydro owner is responsible and foots the bill for maintaining the safety and the maintenance, rather than the monetary burden being on public or DEP. We got to admit that's, I mean, I'm not saying it happens smoothly with all of them, but in general, this is taking money. This is saving money from private people and saving DEP from spending money. So it's helping them to not spend money.
Hydro industry is a private owner. A dam owner that's not hydro is also a private owner. You know, a lot of the owners of these, when we say private owners, doesn't mean that, Mrs. Jones down the street owns it. Sometimes it means an industry owns it. A lot of times it means an industry owns it. If you look through who some of the public owners are, these private owners, the private owners, a lot of them are industries too, like the hydro industry. But there are other industries that own a lot of these dams. Some are owned by individual people too. Some hydros are owned by individual people.
Would a reasonable middle ground be to remove 6 and leave 7?
I think reasonable would be remove 6 and yeah, I think I would have a harder time arguing. I mean, I was going to say put a qualifier on the recreational activities since you're trading one for another on that, but yeah, whatever. I think recreational activities maybe associated with the reservoir, right? Maybe associated with the reservoir, just add that because those are the ones you're talking about, right? Like you're talking about
maybe just recreational activities associated with the hydro facility because
hydro, if you wanted to say the hydro facility or yeah, I agree. Yes.
We have a rec facility, for example, that doesn't have anything to do with the reservoir.
Okay.
But.
Yeah. And I think it bears repeating again. What Alicia and I deal with on a regular basis are not you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason we're involved in a discussion like this is because of all the other things we deal with. And yes, Duncan and John, I deal with bad players on both ends, not less often hydro. That's why less often do we even look at a hydro facility. More often non-hydro. But it doesn't mean that we don't deal with it on both sides. Dam safety issues and owners that are not keeping their facilities safe or environmentally, following any of the environmental regulations.
Everybody get that?
Are we taking out 6?
That's my
six, yeah.
Under protest.
Under protest. It's all right. I'm going to revise that environmental section under protest too, and I'm sure Alicia's going to convince me of what she's got there.
Yeah, this is what compromise looks like.
Exactly.
Was there anything further down? I don't recall. It looks like there's a bunch of stuff. Yeah. I was okay with removing that. I don't know if anybody else had any thoughts.
It was educational for me.
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of ambivalent. If you want to take it out, fine. If we want to keep it, I don't care.
So
I think
I can go either way on that.
It's probably too wordy, but I think just pointing out the tower products is probably a reasonable thing to do. Like, because we're talking about at some point considerations that are market-based. And it'd probably be good to frame up like, what markets we're actually talking about. But it probably could be done in a lot fewer words.
How about in the interest of time here, why don't we just put it back in?
Yeah. So my only comments are obviously at the very bottom where we're repeating a list that I would have similar debates with a lot of the different statements.
Well, since we already talk about this, I mean, I would be fine with pulling this out. I mean, we've already done it. Why reiterate the same thing?
I would rather pull this out. And then if you want to put something about non-power benefits, I'm trying to think of one here that I would consider that.
Are you talking about the list?
Yeah, I would just pull this whole list out. The only thing that I could see saving from this list is at the very end of the list that we just went through, where you do say historic preservation. You could say historic preservation of the dam. And the reason why, but I wouldn't add it here. I would take out this non-power benefits and I would add it maybe up above if you wanted, because there have been some scenarios for me that I've run into where the dam itself had enough historic value that it was going to stay no matter what. And on those particular dams, I mean, like they're still connected to the old mill and they're really obviously historic. Like, for example, I worked on a bunch in the town of Plymouth, so everything's historic there. And in those cases, sometimes it actually makes sense to put small hydro on those because the dam is gonna stay. But I would say very specifically historic preservation of the dam. because there are historic historic preservation issues associated with the river too, and the site, especially Native American historic issues. So, but I would take out this whole section, this non-powered benefits, and then I'd maybe add that one up to where we took out, up above where you had benefits, and say potential historic preservation of a dam.
Well, Laura, can I just ask, have you had a chance to go through this entire section? I know I see
The non-powered benefits, I did. And I could argue each one the way we argued it before.
Yeah, I'm asking because there's, this list sort of leads into, more detailed discussion of a lot of these. And I wasn't sure if.
Oh, I see. No, I didn't. I had a chance to go through this list, but no, not what was below. Or at least I don't think I did. Let me see how much of that. No, it looks like I've got comments for at least some of it. Yeah. At least I've got comments for some of it there.
I don't think you probably didn't get through the rest of it, is my guess.
Yeah, my guess is I probably stopped on where my last comment is. At least, let me see. The state is in front of millions. Dams can negatively impact naturals. Yeah, I might not have gotten through that very last part. I might have been cut short for some reason. I think I got down to my first statement in direct and indirect economic contributions.
Yeah, I'm just guessing, since we had some discussion on some of the other items, you probably need time to go through these. We'll have to have,
So you can see I've put a lot of comments in, but you're right. I think I probably stopped right at direct and indirect economic contributions.
I don't think it's probably not fair to expect you to kind of review this and give thought to it on the fly.
I wouldn't mind a few minutes, but I tell you, a few minutes has been a hard thing to find these last few weeks. I don't know about you guys. But
Doug,
yes.
you have your hand up?
Right. Can we go back to that list that we were thinking of eliminating?
Yeah.
Part of.
Let me see. Read this quick.
I really agree about keeping historic preservation. I think that's a big part of me. We have to go through quite a bit, especially these old New England mills, of adhering to HAER standards, getting it professionally black and white photographs done, and acid-free paper, and
we do
historic commission and all that. So
we have all those same requirements.
Right. So I think that's good to keep. And also I want to keep the removal of tons of trash annually from the river. So I think that's
that I disagree with. Yeah. Okay.
How can you disagree with the fact?
Oh my God. I'll tell you exactly how I can disagree with it. Again, of course, we're going to use Kinneytown as the example here. They gather all the trash behind this gate. They gather it all, and then they don't pull it out. They literally open the gate and flush it down the system. Just impulses.
Well, I will not deny that. I will not deny that maybe some do that, but I would say, and you can read my notes, that everyone that I'm familiar with takes out all the trash. They separate man-made and plastics from organic and properly dispose of everything. So maybe not all of them do that, but the ones that do that, that's a benefit.
I agree. The ones that are doing that, that's a benefit. Yes, I would agree that the ones that are doing that, that's a benefit. Duncan.
So how about if we put in the words from most, or some word like that to make people.
I don't know if it's most or not. I don't know if it's most or not. Do you guys all take trash out of the system?
Tons, literally tons every year.
Tons and tons. Yeah, I just don't know if it's most,
I tell you that Kinneytown is killing us.
I know it is. I know it is. And I hate that, guys, but it is. I mean, when I saw what they were doing, I was so pissed. I couldn't even believe it. But how about we say many? How about we say actually, I don't mind. Say most. I bet you're right. I bet most do it. Yeah. So most, licensed hydro facilities remove. I don't know if it's tons. Have you guys weighed it?
Yeah,
it is tons.
We put them in dumpsters. We put them in dumpsters and they get weighed.
Okay,
Amazing what washes up to boats, but
Oh my
docks.
God.
yeah,
I don't know how many basketballs we have.
yeah.
These stories about what comes up on
So
the
again,
raft.
I think all that stuff is filling up behind Kinneytown too, but literally that was the way they dealt with it. They just flushed it through.
Yeah, well,
They let it gather in big pulses and then opened up and let it go through in big pulses.
awesome.
Maybe
Yeah.
you need to take out the word licensed on that sentence because it could have an exemption or could have no, could be rainbow and they. All right, so what are we going to do with everything here and after? It needs further review by Laura, or can we go right through it all right now and get it done?
I think
Again,
it needs.
I've reviewed down about almost to the last page. I think I got a page and a half, right? No, that's not true. I'm lying. I got like 4 pages to go.
Yeah, I think Laura needs a little bit of time to actually be able to do this.
4 pages. I can do it. Let me look at my schedule. I mean, I can do it tonight.
And I know that we have. I think we're running up on time.
I'll do it tonight. I'll go through it today. Okay. After we get off this call, I'll do it right then.
I think
Thanks, Louis.
so. There was a proposal to have an additional meeting this week, and I know it's going to be challenging to do so. I'm curious what other people's thoughts are on it. I know, Duncan, I kind of know your thoughts. So I'm curious to hear from everybody else if it's possible or not.
We are having an additional meeting this week. It's Friday.
We do have the Friday meeting. That's correct. I think.
Just to let you know, I am as busy as I've ever been in my life. I've got the entire pre-bid site visit on Kinneytown on Thursday. I'm out in New York State all day Wednesday. I literally have no additional time other than Friday to give you guys.
Okay. So Laura's out. I think
Yeah.
that obviously is an important situation.
Yeah, but I also trust Alicia and Eric to keep an eye on things too. So if Alicia and Eric are making it, and I'm
Well, I will say this. I think
not that I don't trust you guys. That sounded horrible. I didn't mean to say it that way. That sounded mean. I didn't mean it that way.
I will say this. I think we've made a considerable amount of progress through this. And I think if we make the changes, Mariana is going to put everything into that single document tomorrow morning. If we can all go, make sure we all go in and do some editing and whatnot, and ideally there won't be any outstanding challenges that are really, anything more than nitpicky or substantive or something that's not substantive.
I'll try to make my comments not be just comments, but like I'll suggest a change or something.
Recommendations. Yeah, I think we can get to that point where at our upcoming meeting on Friday, we can ideally, dot the I's and cross the T's and say we're finished here, and Mariana can get the make it look pretty and go from there. But I think I honestly don't see a good pathway forward for an additional meeting during the week.
Agreed.
That's just my thought.
I think we made good progress on the report. I'm curious, again, I apologize, I didn't make last week's meeting, but what's probably more important, at least from industry perspective, is the condition of the considerations and the language around that. Because this is sort of just companion stuff, right? It's the considerations that could actually be meaningful for the projects moving forward. So what's the condition of that language, I guess, relative to consensus in the group? And again, I haven't kept up, so I don't know.
I'll ask Eric to jump in. I know that Deep had some thoughts and whatnot, but I just want to make sure that Pura obviously has to kind of step aside for those particularly, but I don't know if Eric.
Sure. So I mean, I've put the results of the internal review at Deep of the considerations into the documents, mostly as comments more than, but also some suggestions for changed language. So those will all be in there, and had also worked on, in advance of this meeting, some language to kind of cue, which, is in the executive summary, which we may want to also put in the policy consideration section, just noting some of the the constraints that we have as an entity to endorse the considerations. But that said, I think we're comfortable with them all being in the report. But just to have, as we had discussed, a few times earlier, the opportunity with each of them, if there are any, areas of concern or specific points that we want to make sure are made, to have those included in the report as well. But there's nothing more that we have to add at this stage. It's really just making sure the final version is reflective of the comments that have been made to date.
Yep. Great. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I agree with Eric with the body of the text and with the policy stuff. My only comment is we were talking about appendixes, and I know Alicia and I spoke about this too. I think what we had written up at the beginning as a separate thing, I think is somewhat repetitive of what we've already now included in the body of the report. And I still really don't agree with that list that Duncan provided at the beginning of all these non-hydro dams that I couldn't even determine by the names of them where they were or what they were or if they should be on that list. I consider that data too out of date and not supported to be even included in an appendix.
And that list, was that list, correct me if I'm wrong, that was in Duncan's white paper, is that correct?
I believe so, or at least we were given it at the same time, but they were separate documents, but they were, it was all part of what he submitted right at the beginning.
Okay. So the appendix is really something we need to finalize as well. I mean, so just to keep me honest, it sounds like you don't want to keep what you had sent early on. You don't want to include that in the appendix.
I feel like it might be redundant, or at least that's what when Alicia and I spoke earlier, that's what we were thinking. I don't know if Alicia's still on, but I don't know if Eric, you were. I don't know how involved you were in that. We had a different group of people adding in too, so I wouldn't mind Alicia's opinion if she's still on.
My concern with that is just the data for potential hydropower that is there that is just not even close to accurate.
Go ahead, Duncan.
Right. Well, it's certainly a difficult list to come up with. That one, as you know, I got that from a study done back in 2005 or something like that. It's a makeshift list of unpowered dams out there just for curiosity purposes, nothing else that really can't be used for anything solid like these are feasible, for example. Alicia, you did then send it back and forth with DEP and honed it up a bit. It's really just informational purposes. I know it's not the best thing. There's some dams on there that I'm not even familiar with either. But
right. It's not using the dam safety names. So to be quite honest, there were so many things we couldn't even check. We couldn't check with the state guys or anything else because it's not using any of the official dam names.
Oh, the names, right?
Yeah, there's a name, the dam safety, online, and I've got a big, huge map of them. There are names to the dams. It's not even using those. So it just was completely, we couldn't verify it at all or back it up at all. So I'm uncomfortable with that list getting in here, whether as it's an appendix or, anyway like that.
Let's just keep it out.
Okay, that's the only one.
So you mean keep out that whole study or keep out just that list on the appendix? It's just information.
Well, I know I made a lot of edits, my comments to that study when it went in, and you made comments to the one that we submitted too. So I'd prefer to just keep both of them out, but because I'm saying we should not include ours. So I think it would be better just keep them out, because then just by even being put in as appendix, it implies that it's something the whole group is supporting. And while I appreciate Duncan's efforts in preparing that, and I'm sure it is something he will continue to use and move forward elsewhere, I just don't think it's reflective of the entire group.
I think that's
Okay,
fair.
well put. I'm fine with that, not putting it in.
Okay. That's helpful. It makes the document shorter anyway.
It makes the document shorter, and it's also because Duncan did provide us with a lot of comments too. So if we're keeping ours out as well, then we don't have to go through any of that.
I think that makes sense. So I know that we're right at time, but I did want to just ask, is there any additional public comment? Go ahead, Sarabi. And I apologize if I just mispronounced your name.
Sarabi is fine. Serbi is better.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was very helpful to hear all of you talk about all of these issues. And I'm quietly listening. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to even join this call. I represent the Low Impact Hydropower Institute. And it's interesting because like a lot of the issues that everybody is raising, both from Laura and Alicia, as well as everybody else, goes to the ultimately the point about implementation. Early on when people are talking about that sometimes there may be rules, but it really matters whether or not they're implemented and whether or not there's oversight. And it's really critical in terms of coming up with considerations, at least from Lee's perspective. We really work to make sure that any hydropower projects that we do end up supporting meet a very high standard of operation. And it's really critical to make sure that any language, particularly as this group is contemplating its considerations, really has teeth in terms of, the requirements that these projects need to demonstrate in order to be included in any kind of benefit that they receive. I know there were points made about, how water quality certificates, for example, are waived sometimes. And so it's important to make sure that any projects that do get considered and get benefits demonstrate, like do everything possible to demonstrate that high level of socio-environmentally responsible operation. So that's all I want to say. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Well, thank you.
That gives me a good idea. You guys should have like a little group. And when we do run into a bad player, instead of us going through all this, we should just get you guys to go do an intervention with the player. Be like, come on, you're making us all look bad here.
Well, thank you, Serbi. I appreciate you taking the time to be on. Any additional public comment? Okay. With that, I'm going to say that next meeting will be Friday, 1 p.m. Ideally to hammer this thing home and send it on its way. So thanks everybody for taking the time on a Monday afternoon. I apologize for running into dinner.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Right.